Summer is typically the time of year when people decide, I think it's time to go on vacation. We deserve a break. Kids are out of school. Let's go somewhere and do something fun. The summer vacation. Wally World, here we come. Well, it turns out a lot of people are going to have to either cancel those vacation plans or downgrade them substantially if they want to do anything at all this year because of how bad the economy is and how bad the job market is. Take this couple, for example, that lives in Illinois. They had tickets to go to Comic-Con in San Diego at the end of July, and when they were looking into the prices in the middle of April, they decided to cancel the trip because they estimated it would cost about $2,500, which was just outside of their allotted budget for this. Not only are they paying more for their regular household expenses, but their rent also went up this year, and he's trying to save to become a homeowner, which is seemingly further and further out of reach. And of course, if you go on vacation, that's going to be eating into that future homeownership fund. And a lot of people need to decide what their priorities are right now. So instead, they're going to be taking a road trip to South Dakota's Black Hills. And apparently that's supposed to be cheaper. But I would really caution people against what they think is going to be cheaper, because I've done this before, guys. In fact, there's a couple of stories in here I'm going to share with you guys about people trying to save money on their summer vacation. But I did that once, I think in 2010, okay? Plane tickets were sky high. It seemed way more affordable for my wife and I to drive back to Illinois and spend a couple weeks over there. And so we decided to drive instead of fly. And I did all the math, and it was supposed to be saving us a significant amount of money, maybe like $600–700 we would have saved. And back then, that was a lot more money than it is now, especially when you don't have a lot of money to begin with. Anyways, what ended up happening is all I had was my Camaro back then. We're driving through Georgia. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was speeding. State trooper pulls me over. I was 20 miles per hour over the speed limit, which I didn't even realize I was going that fast, but he got me, okay? And basically gave me a ticket for reckless driving, and I had a court appearance. So I had to hire a lawyer in Georgia to fight this ticket for me and appear on my behalf and all of that. And that was $400 later. So after getting that ticket and all the expenses of doing the road trip, it ended up being a wash. And then I still had to drive back home and take the chance that maybe something like that would happen again. And of course, don't forget that if you are opting to take a road trip instead of fly to save money, other unexpected expenses can come up. You can have your car break down on the road trip, which can end up being a significant repair bill while you're out on the road. You can also miss out on some events or maybe destinations you had planned, tickets you had things for because of that delay. So there's always something that could happen. So just take it from somebody who's driven cross country twice and back and forth to Illinois a few times from Florida, that things happen. The road trip almost never goes as expected. You have this other couple that recently retired, and they've been planning a trip to Paris for the last 54 years because they're in their 70s. So they've been talking about this forever, and they had about 20 grand earmarked for this trip right now. And this was only a 2-week itinerary that included England and Scotland. That sounds very expensive to me. I mean, I can go to California for months at a time and spend 20 grand. That's kind of crazy that it costs that much. But these people say they actually got spooked by the tariff situation and all these other countries being upset with the United States, and they didn't want to be Americans traveling abroad, especially to somewhere like Paris. Like, first of all, the French are known for not liking Americans long before this trade situation. And if it's worse now, it's worse now. But that's actually a place on my list that I kind of never wanted to go, just because I know that they take advantage of Americans and they don't speak English on purpose. These are the things I've heard from other people. They can be very rude over there. That's just what I'm hearing. I'm just repeating things that were told to me. If you're French and you're from Paris and it's not that way, feel free to let us know. But the point is, these people were afraid of this situation, essentially, and they decided to cancel that Paris trip and go to Walt Disney and Universal down here in Florida instead. And this vacation is supposed to cost about half as much as their European vacation, which is still a lot, guys. A $10,000 trip to come to Florida for just a couple weeks, that sounds like a lot of money to me. And you can actively see the spending starting to go down in the travel category. When you take a look at this graph right here, you can see that services and restaurants are holding up okay over the past year. But you can see airlines and lodging has been plummeting basically since the middle of 2024 until now, and it just continues to go down. People are just not traveling like they were before, and that's due to the extra cost. Traveling is not a necessity. Neither is going out to eat, but let's face it, going to a restaurant and spending $100 on dinner is a lot more affordable, and it's like a nice little luxury you can have once in a while here and there that's not going to break the bank, rather than spending, you know, $2,500, $5,000, or even 10 grand on a vacation. Right now, the share of Americans who are planning to take a vacation in the next 6 months slipped below 40% in February, which is the first time since the pandemic. We're seeing a lot of stats come out about the economy right now that are just as bad, if not worse, than they were in the middle of the pandemic. You know, McDonald's, same store sales, same thing, guys. These guys are suffering so much. People aren't buying that fast food to the point where their sales are just as bad as they were during the pandemic. And take a look at this historical chart here going all the way back to 2016. Even back then, it was over 45 and kept on rising for a while there until the pandemic hit. Like, things were okay. Like, did we have the greatest and best economy ever? No. But compared to now, things were a whole lot better in basically every way. And then you can see there was a giant dip due to the pandemic, and then travel started to recover. That was that doom spending and revenge travel that we also talked about here on the channel. But what do you notice over the past year? A bunch of people have been falling off a cliff when it comes to vacation plans because it's just too expensive and it's an unnecessary expense in hard economic times. Now, some people are stuck with travel plans because whatever they booked might be non-refundable and they just have to bite the bullet and do it. Otherwise, you're going to lose the money anyways. But what's more common than people canceling trips right now is people just abandoning travel plans that they might have had, and they're looking at it and saying, you know what, not this year, maybe next year. A lot of travelers are also trying to use as many of their credit cards and rewards points as possible rather than paying for in dollars, which is also smart. You should be doing that if you have those points available. Spending on airlines was down 11% in the week ending May 10th compared to just that same week a year ago. And airlines said that they're actually cutting prices in order to attract customers right now. Airlines say that international bookings as well as premium seats remain strong because, once again, those are the same people who are buying million-dollar homes right now. They're not being fazed too much by this poor economy. And that goes exactly with what we've been talking about here, which is that the top 10% of Americans are spending half of the money right now, and it reflects in the data every time we take a look at it from a different angle. They talked to another guy, 79 years old, who's retired, who usually taps into his retirement accounts in order to take a trip, and he lives up in St. Augustine, Florida. But instead of flying this year, they're going to drive up to New York to visit family. And it'll be about a 15-hour drive and will cost them about $200 in motels plus gas. They usually fly, but that would cost $600 to $800 plus airport parking and dog boarding. Well, like I said earlier, you know, you think it's going to cost $200 until, you know, you break down or until you get a speeding ticket or something like that happens, and you just don't know. So the reality is it's more inconvenient and you're taking more risk that something might happen. That's why also I've been deciding now, like when I go to California in the summertime, I'm just shipping my Jeep and I'm flying out there, guys, because really the cost of doing that is about the same as the road trip because it takes me a long time to drive there. I think it takes me about 9 days in total one way. And the reason it takes me that long is because I don't want to drive more than 6 hours a day. That's already a lot. Plus I'm on the road making these videos. You're in and out of hotels, you know, bringing stuff in, bringing stuff out. It's a lot, you know, it's exhausting. So yeah, I probably could do it faster, but I would be completely miserable if I did. So the fact that it takes me 9 days and you got all these hotel stays along the way, gas, your food, everything, that adds up to what it costs to ship the car. In fact, it's basically a wash. Sometimes it can actually even be cheaper to ship the car and fly. And then there's also the added benefit that I'm not putting the miles on my car, you know, so that helps you save in the long run too. And to be honest with you, I wish I didn't have to go somewhere so far away, but the reality is there is nowhere else in the United States where the weather is in basically the mid to low 70s every single day, besides the Pacific Northwest and the Bay Area. Like, there's nowhere, guys. Even in the Northeast, it gets hotter than that. It's muggy like it is here in Florida. It's not really any mountains by the beach or anything for the most part. It's just not the same. So for anybody wondering why I go there, that's why I go. To have an endless amount of hiking available, perfect weather every day, that's the reason. In the future, I was thinking about trying out Washington State. In fact, I have plans to visit Washington State while I'm in California this year. I'm going to be doing several different trips while I'm over there on the West Coast to some places I haven't been in a while and places I've never been before. By the way, this house behind me here, I give up. I'm not even going to show this listing anymore. I've featured this listing in my videos probably at least a handful of times already, and this place has been sitting on the market for as long as I've been doing these outdoor walk and talk videos. No joke. I started doing these outdoor walk and talks in like June of 2022, to put that into perspective. So 3 years out on the road, walking these sidewalks, this house is still available. Here's another sign that the economy is not doing too well, is store closures and store mergers. Carol sent me this story about Dick's Sporting Goods acquiring Foot Locker. And the funny thing is, neither one of these businesses have been doing too well, but they're buying Foot Locker for $2.4 billion. Earlier this year, Dick's Sporting Goods saw their stock decline about 18%, and Foot Locker's doing even worse. Their stocks dropped 41% this year, as they're struggling to reclaim their territory in the footwear market. But they're hoping that this is going to work out when they merge these two brands, because between both of those two stores, they are the top sellers in America of Nike shoes. And also, I would expect a lot of people aren't going to be spending money on top dollar and premium brand shoes as much anymore either. People are going to be going for the cheaper Skechers or Payless shoes or whatever under this current environment, because who cares? They're all made in China anyways, so it's not like you're really getting any sort of a bump in quality if you were going to buy the Nikes. They're all probably made in the same factory. There's another store, an outdoor store called Next Adventure, which sells outdoor gear and apparel for the Pacific Northwest. They are closing down, and they're based in Portland, Oregon. They've been in business since 1997, and the owner just announced that they're going to be closing down all of their locations. Now, the owner is retiring from the business, and that's why they're supposedly closing it down. I'm surprised he's not selling it to somebody else rather than just close it down. But anyways, they're going to be doing one of those going out of business sales, everything must go, which, by the way, reminds me that there's actually a store here I saw in Surfside the other day that's going through that too. Take a look at this video I took when I was over there. This appears to be some sort of toy store where they sell all sorts of items that essentially nobody needs in a bad economy. And you can see these are the type of places that are suffering right now. Places that sell non-essentials, guys, which is a reminder that if you're ever going to start a business, it makes a lot of sense to get into some sort of recession-proof business. Your product or service should always be something that people need, no matter what the situation is. It might not be as sexy, it might be a lot more boring, but also you'll stay in business. But the reality is the Portland area is continuing to lose a lot of retailers due to the rising crime, the homeless population rising over there. It's just not a good situation. Maybe I'll even visit that area too, since I won't be that far away if I'm in the Bay Area. We'll see. Just to give people an update, an idea of what's going on over there, and I've never been there before either. Because other retailers have been leaving the area as well. Retailers like REI and Andy and Bax. In fact, REI said that they left in 2023 because it had the highest number of break-ins and thefts in 2 decades, despite actions to provide extra security. They spent over $800,000 on security in 2022, yet they still had 10 burglaries. And it doesn't really matter if you have people over there that want to cancel the police. Check out that thing. Got the yacht out there. You got people out here wakeboarding. Guess the economy's going okay for them. And I suspect it's still going okay for a lot of people. I'm not like highlighting these people saying, oh, look how rich they are, everybody else's life sucks. Absolutely not. In fact, I think a lot of people who watch my channel are very conscious of their money and have learned all their life how to do more with less, because that's what I've done, and I feel like that's the type of person I've attracted to this channel, because we just have that in common, you know? Like, I'm able to go away for the summer on a very decent budget as far as I'm concerned. People are paying, you know, more money to go on 2 or 3, 4-week vacations than I spend all summer sometimes. Also, I've heard many of you repeat in the comments so many times that part of the reason things are so messed up right now is because people have forgotten how to live within their means. And I completely agree. Just when you look at some of these vacation stories and how much people are looking at spending for relatively short trips is kind of like shocking, in my opinion. I know things have gone up. I know things are expensive, but you know, 10 grand for a couple weeks or 20 grand for a couple weeks sounds excessive to me. Something else to be on the lookout for that Richard sent me, you gotta be taking a closer look when you're at the grocery store checkout right now, if they're actually giving you the price that they're supposed to, because Kroger grocery stores just got in big trouble for overcharging their customers. Basically what would happen is somebody would pick up an item that they thought was on sale, and then they would go to buy it and realize that, hey, they're charging the regular price, not the sale price. And I've seen this happen to me a few times before too. But Consumer Reports, they just did an investigation at different grocery stores, and they found expired sales tags on more than 150 different grocery items, which led to people being overcharged at the checkout. On average, people were charged $1.70 more per item, which is about an 18.4% markup from what the price should have been. Kroger says it's because of the major staffing cuts that have left them with reduced hours, and you know, the workforce is stretched way too thin, and it makes it impossible for them to keep up with changing all the price tags. And this is another reason why a lot of these retailers want to go to digital price tags, because then they can just change it on the spot. One click of a button on the computer, it's all changed. It also gives them a much easier way to lie, and they can say, oh no, it wasn't on sale, what are you talking about? So unless you have a picture of the price tag on your phone, you don't have any proof. Versus when you go to the store and they try to pull this stunt right now, you can walk them over there and say, hey, look, this is supposed to be on sale. Why didn't it ring up like this? But if the price tags are all digital, they can just change it on the fly and make you look like an idiot. Now, I'm not saying that's the intention or that's exactly what stores are going to do, but the potential for abuse is there. Other grocery stores have been in a lawsuit over this as well. Safeway, Albertsons, and Vons, they agreed to pay about $4 million to settle a lawsuit that says that they were overcharging their customers. So probably every grocery store does this, and just like any other industry, let's just see how much we can get away with. The excuse is we don't have enough workers, but this is something that's been happening for a long time, so I don't really buy that. You know, we talked a lot in this video about how broke everybody is, but let's flip the switch for a minute and talk about what it means to be rich right now in terms of wealth in this country. Like, how much money do you have to have? What does your pay have to be in order to be considered one of the wealthy ones? Well, according to a survey from Charles Schwab, Americans believe that you need to have a net worth of $2.5 million to be wealthy, but if you have about 780,000, that'll be enough to put you in the financially comfortable category, and we're talking net worth. We're not talking cash in the bank here. But in order to truly be wealthy, in order to be one of the top income earners in this country, the top 1%ers right now are earning $682,000 a year or more. The top 5%ers are earning $252,000 a year or more, and the top 10% are earning about $170,000 a year or more. And of course, if you go to more of the expensive states like Massachusetts, New Jersey, California, Connecticut, Washington, the top earners in those states, the top 1%ers, are earning over $1 million a year. And in some of the cheaper states like Mississippi, New Mexico, and West Virginia, you can be earning $500,000 a year and be a 1%er. So it kind of depends. But look how much higher this is than the average income, guys. The average income here is still only about $70,000, $75,000 a year people make. So there is such a huge gap in the people that really do well and really earn a lot versus just the average income earner. And this is what I keep trying to drill into people. Like, those are the people that have been supporting this economy over the past few years. Because if you're earning that much money, you're not really fazed by a little bit of inflation. You're not fazed by a car costing $10,000 more than it used to. You're not fazed by spending $800 a month in the grocery store now versus $600. You know, none of that stuff matters. And also something I want to emphasize is it's not just about income. Like, people focus a lot on income and to compare themselves with others depending on how they're doing. But one of the best financial lines out there ever heard is it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. You know, living without debt, that makes you a rich person in this day and age. If you're somebody who doesn't have debt, but you only earn the average income of $70,000 a year, you're a rich person. Right now, the average American owes about $105,000 in debt as of 2024, guys. $105,000. I can't even imagine being buried under that much debt right now. And you know what was one of the largest contributing factors to people going more into debt recently is the increase of people getting home equity lines of credit. That percentage grew 7.2% from 2023 to 2024. Credit card debt also increased substantially over the past couple of years, up 3.5% from 2023 to 2024. And then what does that tell you? More and more people are leaning on borrowing power to survive this economy. I have talked about this so many times, and the data is there to back it up. So the question is, when do people actually run out of money? When does the party really over? Also, I would say being rich and being wealthy in this society right now is having flexibility, which comes from not having the debt, which means also not living paycheck to paycheck, being able to take that vacation if you want to, being able to go out to dinner if you want to. Like, if you get yourself and your finances in order to a strong enough point, then even when the economy is bad, you'll still be able to live a decent life. But the problem is people make too many bad decisions when things are good, and then when things are bad, they suffer tremendously because of those poor decisions. That's what most people do. But the reality is, you don't have to be a 1%er or even in the top 10% of income earners to be a rich person. You know, if you are somebody who has a decent amount of retirement savings, no debt, and still living on a modest income, you're rich, in my opinion. You are still light years ahead of what the average person is doing right now, considering the average person has $105,000 in debt. If that's not you, congratulations. But let us all know, are you canceling your vacation plans? Are you modifying them to match a lower budget in a tighter economy? Let us all know what you're doing, guys. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.